There is a photograph of Ted Bundy taken outside a courthouse in the mid-1970s. He is wearing a suit. He is smiling. He looks like a law student on his way to an interview. Women in the crowd found him attractive. Some wrote him letters. One of them married him. In that same courthouse, during his own murder trial, Ted Bundy killed at least 30 women, possibly 50, possibly more. He operated across 7 states over 5 years. He escaped from prison twice. His trials were broadcast on television and drew higher ratings than the soap operas they replaced. And when he was finally executed in 1989, crowds gathered outside the prison to celebrate and to mourn, both at the same time. Because Ted Bundy was something the criminal justice system had never encountered before. A monster who looked exactly like everyone else, Theodore Robert Bundy was born in 1946 in Burlington, Vermont. His mother was unmarried. For the first years of his life, he was raised believing his grandparents were his parents, and his mother was his sister. By his college years at the University of Washington, he was working on political campaigns, volunteering at a suicide prevention hotline, and being described as one of the most impressive young men the people around him had ever met. Anne Rule, a crime writer who worked alongside Bundy at that hotline and later wrote the definitive book about him, said she found him warm, caring, and genuinely kind. She had no idea. Nobody did. The woman he dated for years, Elizabeth Clofer, eventually called police to report her suspicions. They dismissed her 3 times because the man she was describing and the man they saw when they looked at Ted Bundy were 2 completely different people. That gap between what he showed the world and what he actually was is what made him the most dangerous kind of predator. Not the violence, the disguise. In January 1974, young women began disappearing from the streets of Seattle and Tacoma. The pattern was always the same. A young woman, usually brunette, usually a college student, would simply not come home. No witnesses, no struggle, no evidence. Just gone. Bundy's method was calculated and practiced. He would approach his victims in public places, parking lots, college campuses, often wearing an arm cast or using crutches. He would ask for help carrying something to his car. When they were close enough, he would strike. He drove a Volkswagen Beetle. He kept handcuffs, rope, and a crowbar in the car. By the time authorities in Washington began connecting the disappearances, running the first computerized suspect database in the history of American law enforcement, Bundy had moved to Utah and started again. Utah, then Idaho, then Colorado, each state working its own case, none of them seeing the full picture. Just a growing list of missing women and remains found in remote locations months or years later. In March 2026, 52 years after the fact, DNA testing finally confirmed that Bundy had killed 17-year-old Laura Ann Amy, last seen at a Halloween party in 1974. 52 years. For her family, that confirmation meant everything. In August 1975, a Utah Highway Patrol officer pulled over a Volkswagen Beetle, driving slowly through a suburb of Salt Lake City at 2:30 in the morning. Inside, handcuffs, a ski mask, rope, a crowbar, and an ice pick. The driver gave his name as Ted Bundy. He was arrested. He was released on bail the next day. In October, Carol Durant, a teenager who had escaped from Bundy the previous year when he posed as a police officer, identified him in a lineup. He was convicted of kidnapping. While in prison, he was charged with murder in Colorado and transported to Aspen for a hearing. And in June 1977, left alone in the courthouse law library, Bundy opened a second-floor window and jumped. He jogged down Main Street in Aspen. Nobody stopped him. He was recaptured 6 days later. He went back to prison, and on New Year's Eve, he escaped again, this time through a hole he had cut in the ceiling of his cell. His absence was not discovered for 15 hours. By the time anyone knew he was gone, Ted Bundy was already on a bus heading east. The FBI added him to their 10 most wanted list. He kept moving, and he kept killing. Bundy made his way to Tallahassee, Florida. He rented a room near Florida State University under a false name. And on the night of January 15, 1978, he entered the Chi Omega sorority house while the students slept. He attacked 4 women. 2 of them, Margaret Bowman and Lisa Levy, did not survive. He left bite marks on one of the victims, evidence that would later become crucial. 3 weeks later, he abducted a 12-year-old girl named Kimberly Leach from outside her school in the middle of the day. She was his youngest confirmed victim, his last. On February 15th, a police officer in Pensacola noticed a car driving erratically at 1:30 in the morning. He ran the plates. Stolen vehicle. He pulled the driver over. The man gave a false name and resisted arrest. When the officer finally got him into the patrol car, the man said quietly, "I wish you had killed me." Back at the station, he eventually revealed his real identity. Ted Bundy, the FBI's most wanted fugitive, brought down by a routine traffic stop at 1:30 in the morning. The trial of Ted Bundy was unlike anything American courtrooms had seen before. It was televised, gavel-to-gavel coverage. Bundy fired his attorneys and represented himself, walking the line between defendant and lawyer, cross-examining witnesses, addressing the jury, performing. The cameras loved him. The public watched. Some of the letters he received in prison during the trial were from women who found him attractive. He used his time on the stand not just to defend himself, but to hold the attention of everyone in the room. And then, in the middle of the trial, he proposed marriage to Carol Ann Boone, a woman he had known for years, who was on the stand as a character witness. Using an obscure Florida law under which a verbal declaration before witnesses in a court of law constituted a legal marriage, she accepted. They were married, in the courtroom, during a murder trial. The jury convicted him anyway. He received 2 death sentences for the Chi Omega murders, a 3rd for Kimberly Leach. He spent 10 years on death row filing appeals, offering investigators information about his crimes in exchange for delays, and giving interviews to journalists and psychologists who wanted to understand how a mind like his worked. None of them ever fully did. On January 24, 1989, Ted Bundy was executed in the electric chair at Florida State Prison. He was 42 years old. The night before his execution, he gave a final interview to a Christian broadcaster, cried, called his mother twice, and prayed. His last words to investigators were about victims. He confessed to 30 murders that night. Investigators believe the true number is higher. As recently as March 2026, DNA testing confirmed a victim that had not been officially attributed to him for 52 years. How many more names are still out there? We don't know. His ashes, per his will, were scattered over the Cascade Mountains in Washington state, the same mountains where the remains of at least 4 of his victims were found. What Bundy left behind is not just a body count. It is a question that law enforcement and psychologists and criminologists have been trying to answer ever since. How does someone live that double life for that long? Among colleagues, among friends, among the people who trusted him, and leave no trace of what he really was. This has been The Dark Stories. Sleep well.